Okay, so my name is Professor Clark, and I want to welcome everyone to our go-to training for day 6. Today we will be covering business applications. This section should help us some with assignment 2, but not completely. Not all the problems in assignment 2 are business application problems, but they are word problems. And so the same concepts that we use to solve word problems, whether they're business application or physics or just day-to-day problems, we'll also see in those problems too. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to start with a problem. I want to see if you guys can answer this problem. If a musician gets a royalty payment of 10% of the CD sales receipt, but has an agent who gets 15% of what the musician gets, what is the agent's rate of the total CD sales? Okay, I want to see if you guys can solve this one.
Out cleaning you, all that type stuff. Hold on. Yeah, that's. Hold on. What the heck?
Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so once you think you've come up with the answer, please place your answer in the chat box. Okay, Jennifer, thank you for your honesty. Okay, how about everyone else? How's everyone else looking on this problem? It says royalty payments of 10% of the CD sales receipt, but has an agent who gets 15%. So it doesn't give you a specific number. Now it's wanting to know what is the agent's rate. So a rate is also a percentage. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be a percentage, but it can be. Like what we pay for gas is also a rate. Like right now in Florida, the rate is $1.99 per gallon. Okay, Julie, thank you for your honesty. Okay, John has 1.5%. And let's see, any other responses? Jared, what about you? Okay, and Jared has 15%. Okay, so let's look at it. First thing we want to do is identify the buzzwords. 10% of 15%. Okay, does anybody know what the word of means in math terms? That's correct. It means to multiply. Okay, so the word of means multiply. So we're going to take 10% times 15%, and that'll give us our answer. So 15% of 10%, it's going to be 15% gets converted to a decimal, so does the 10%. And then we multiply, and that gives us 0.015. We convert that to a percent, we come up with 1.5%. We convert it to a percent simply by moving the decimal 2 places to the right and then dropping the percent sign behind it. Just like that. So congratulations, John. You came up with a correct answer. But typically the way we solve word problems is just you can use a picture. You can draw a picture. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it, just going out identifying the important things in the word problem that you're going to need in order to do the math. Okay, not everything in the word problem pertains to the math. Okay, the numbers clearly do. And then the key concepts or buzzwords that let us know to multiply, divide, or subtract. Okay, so those things are there for us. Okay, here we have another problem. I want you guys to see if you can solve this one. Okay, and all these problems build. Okay, so let's see if we can come up with the answer for this one. Okay, John has 75%. All right, Julie came up with 75% as well. Okay, Jennifer came up with 25%. Okay, and we're still waiting for Jared.
Hello.
Okay, thank you for your honesty, Jared. Okay, so we have 50% on an already discount. And then we have an original discount of 50%. And now we want to know what's the actual discount now. Okay, so the word actual discount now implies that we're going to be given 2 discounts. Okay, we've got the original discount of 50%, and then we're going to get an additional discount on top of that. And so we got to figure out what that additional discount is that we're going to add to the 50%. Okay, so that's the key concept here, is that what is the actual discount now? Okay, and it says already discounted. The original discount was 50%. Okay, so if we're already discounted at 50%, they're not going to take that back. We get to keep that, plus we get the new discount from the flyer. Okay, so we got 50% of 50%, which is going to be 50% times 50%, which is going to give us 25%. So that's the new discount. And then that new discount gets attached to the original discount of 50%. And so that gives us 75%. Now, questions like this, though they may be confusing, they also have to meet the common sense test. Okay, and the common sense test is this. You know, Why would you buy something for less when they've already promised you more? You're going to want to get that more and then some. Okay, so that's the way discounts typically work. When they give you a discount on top of a discount, that means that your discount is going to increase. Okay, so it would not be less. So if they promise you 50% and they say, well, we're going to give you 30% on top of the 50%, but you've already got the 50%. So whatever your new discount is, it's going to have to be more than 50% because that's the ideal behind giving you an additional discount on top of the discount you're already getting. Okay, so here's another problem for us. Let's see if we can solve this one. A pair of boots costs $40 after a reduction of 20%. Okay, what is the pair's original price? Now, there's a difference between of and off problems. Okay, of means to multiply. Off means to subtract and multiply. Okay. Okay. So is this a of or off problem? Well, it says after a reduction. Okay, so let's look at that word. What does that word after a reduction mean? Okay, final price. Okay, it also means off. After a reduction means 20% off. Okay, so that word off comes in different ways. One way it comes off is, after a reduction, it's going to be 20% off. Okay. Well, multiply it back out. Take 20% out of 48 and see if you come back up with $40, John. Okay, so you checked it and now you know that it's kind of not right. So, okay, Julie came up with 50. Okay, Julie, you do the same thing. Multiply yours by 20%. And when you subtract, see if you come back up with $40. Okay, so you've already verified yours. Okay, excellent. Okay, so that word, how about everybody else? How are we doing? Put this back out. Okay, so that word, you got 20% off. That's what the word after reduction means. So that means that's been taken off. Anytime you have an off problem, there's going to be subtraction involved. Okay, so there's going to be two ways we can do this problem. One way we can do it is we can take 40%. We can take $40, and then we can take the 80. We can take 100, not 80, and subtract 20% from it, and then that'll give us 80%. Okay. So if you got 20% off, that means you got to pay for 80%. So we can take 40 and divide it by 80%, or 0.80, and then that'll give us 50. So that's one way you can do it. Okay. Another way we can do it is we can start off with X for the original price minus 20% of X, and then that's going to equal the new price of 40. Okay, so that right there is the original. That right there is the discount. And this one right here is after discount. Okay, and our problems work this way. You got original price, you subtract the discount, and then you got the price after discount. Okay, so that's the way it goes. You go in the store, buy a shirt, they give you a discount. You subtract the discount from the price, and then that's what you have to pay. Okay, so those are the things I got. Now that original is really 1x. So now I got 1 minus 20 cents gives me 0.80x. Then that's equal to 40. Divide both sides by 0.80, just like I did before. I mean, it's the same concept. And x equals 50 again. Okay, so the new price is 50. And then, congratulations to Julie who came up with 50. Excellent job. And then, of course, you can prove that by taking 50%, 20% of 50% of 50. And 20% of 50 is $10. Then you can take $50 and minus $10. And then you end up with 40. Okay, so that's how we verify it. Okay, because at the end of the day, when you take out the 20%, it's got to come back up with the pair of what the boots cost. Okay, so we'll look at what the system, how the system did this. Yeah. And so it's a price of $50. Now remember, there's a difference between off and of problems. So anytime you see an off problem, you know you got to subtract. And off is anytime they're talking about taking something away. So all those discount problems, are going to be off problems unless they state discount, unless they state a percentage of. Okay, here's another problem. They want us to do a dollar markup. Okay, is this going to be an of or off problem? Okay, thanks everybody. You're correct. It is going to be an of problem. Okay, so let's figure out what the dollar markup is going to be. Okay, let's see if we can solve this one. Megan, Rocky. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. For a dollar markup, we're trying to figure out how much it increased. Okay, and I see most people are taking the liberty to do the selling price too. Okay, so with the markup, we simply have to multiply because it's an of problem. And so when we mark up, that's going to give us $35.26. And then to figure out the selling price, we simply have to add the 35.26 to the 82. And then that's going to give us 117.26. Okay, so you guys did a good job with this problem. Alrighty here. What about a markdown? What about a markdown? How are we going to figure out the markdown? Okay, so guys, what do you think the markdown is going to be on this? Okay, so we got a $2 markdown by Julie.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, with a 2.86%. Okay, $2 for Jared. Okay, yeah, the markdown is going to be subtraction. So we'll just take the original price, subtract the reduced price, selling price, and then that'll give us $2 for the markdown. So the price is going down by $2. In order to find the markdown percent, we've got to take the $2 and divide it by 70, which is the original. And then that's going to give us 2.86%. Okay, so you guys did a good job on that one. Okay, what about this one right here? What is the average they earn each day? This is an average problem. So let's see if we can solve this one. Okay, Jennifer had $43.75. Okay, John, the average is much like figuring out how to figure out your grade, and it's not weighted. So it's that type of average. Okay, so let's look at it. With an average, you always have to add everything up and divide it. Okay, so that's what an average is always about. We compare through quantities through division. Okay, we do your grades the same way. You can add all the grades up and then divide them by the amount of grades you give. And they give you an average grade. Okay, so here we got 42, 35, 51, 47. We add all those numbers up, divided by 4, and that's your average. 43.75. And then next, we have one brand of mushroom sells for $1.99 for a 12-ounce can, and another is $1.79 for a 10-ounce can. Which is the better buy? Okay, now with this problem, we're going to use a rate because we're going to be looking for a unit rate. So let's see if we can figure out what the unit rates are, and then we'll compare the unit rates. Okay, so let's look at it. To find the rate, we're going to use division. Okay, most of the times when in doubt, always use division because division will give you an average. Okay, that's how we compare people's grades is with an average. So, I mean, because you can't take one grade and look at it, because one person could do really well on one grade and then another person could do really well on another grade, and then someone else could do really well on a different grade. So what we do is we take an average. And so we can take that average and compare it across the board with everybody. To say, okay, well, this person's average is an 80, that person's average is a 79. And you may be better in some things than somebody else is, but overall your average is going to say how well you did in the class. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to take the average of both of these, and we'll just take the $1.99 and divide it by 12 to come up with the unit rate or average. And we'll take the $1.79 and divide it by 10 to come up with the unit rate or average. And so we can see that our unit rates in this case or averages are 17 cents per ounce and 18 cents per ounce. Okay, and so 17 cents is clearly cheaper than 18%. Okay, so here we go. Is 3 ounces of salami the same weight as 2,500 pounds? Okay, so in order to solve this problem, we've got to find a conversion rate. Now, we just talked about unit rates. Conversion rates are different. A conversion rate is a rate you can multiply something by or divide it by to convert it from one thing to the next. Okay, for instance, let's say if we had 7 feet and we wanted to convert that to yards. So we want to convert it to yards. Well, the conversion rate, I'm gonna call it CR, from feet to yards or from yards to feet is 3. Okay, and that's because there's 3 feet in 1 yard and there's 1 yard in 3 feet. So that's my conversion rate. So if I want to convert feet to yards, then I've got to take 7 and divide it by 3. And that'll tell me how many yards I got. And then that's going to be 2 yards for the remainder of 1 divided by 3. Okay. Now let's say, for instance, I had 17 yards and I wanted to convert it to feet. Okay, because the conversion rate between feet and yards is the same, all I have to do is just multiply. So in this case, I'm going to take 17 and multiply it by 3 to get to the feet. But the rate is always 3 in this case because there's 3 yards in one. There's 3 feet in 1 yard. So the rate is always 3. So in this case, that's going to be, and on this one right here, I should put yards on the back end of it. You got to use the correct unit of measurement, though the answer gets marked wrong. And then that's going to be 51. Okay, so there we go. So that's the conversion rate is what it's called. Okay, we've got unit rates, which allow us to compare two things. And then we got conversion rates, which allows us to convert one thing to the next. That's why it's called conversion rate. So I'm going to clear this, and then we're going to figure out what the conversion rate is. Okay. Now, if you don't know what the conversion rate is, where can we find the conversion rate? If you don't know what the conversion rate of anything is in life, where do you go to find it? Okay, well, what do you mean by iPhone? Okay, where do we go to find things when we don't know what they are? Google, thank you. Google. Okay, you can go to Google or Bing. If you had to say it Bing or Google, either one of those answers would have been accepted. So you just type it into Google. How do you convert ounces to pounds? Okay. So here it's going to tell us that 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. Okay, so it's saying that right here 16 ounces is equal to 1 pound. So in this case, our conversion rate is 16. Okay. You'll always be given two numbers. One of them will be 1 and another number. The another number will be your conversion rate. Okay, the another number will be your conversion rate. So we've got, 12 inches equals 1 foot. The 12 will be your conversion rate. You'll never use the 1 as a conversion rate. You'll always use the other number. So in this case, because we've got 16 equals 1, our conversion rate in this case is 16. So to convert from ounces to pounds, we'll divide by 16. And to convert from pounds pounds to ounces, we'll multiply by 16. Okay, and so those will be our answers. But I want to show you something here. Notice we're multiplying by 16 here, and see we're dividing by 16 here. And that's because 16 is our conversion rate. Okay, so you just got to figure out what is the conversion rate. Okay, and whatever that conversion rate is, to convert from one to the other one, you end up either multiplying or dividing. Okay, and you can tell if you got to convert, if you got to divide, because the ounces are larger. To go to pounds, you divide. See, because it go from 16 to 1, you obviously have to say 16 divided by 16 is 1. And then to go from the smaller one to the larger one, you obviously have to say 1 times 16 gives you 16. Okay, so that's how you can tell whether you multiply or divide by looking at the actual conversion itself. Okay, so from here, we're going to look at depreciation. This is a business application. Depreciation is how we disperse the cost of a large ticket item over time. Okay, the IRS will not allow you to write off large ticket items in 1 year. Let's say you buy a building. Okay, they may say that building's got to be depreciated over 30 years. Let's say you buy a bulldozer. They may say that bulldozer's got to be depreciated over 7 years. Let's say you buy a car. They may say the car's got to be depreciated over 3 years. And this is all for business purposes, not for your own personal purposes. So if you own a business, things will get depreciated. But you don't have to worry about that in your own personal stuff outside of the fact that, assets like cars and TVs do depreciate in value. Okay. But they don't depreciate, like on a straight line or, an accelerated method similar to how it's outlined in the IRS's schedules, because that's like textbook depreciation there. Okay. The resale value of it may be totally different. The resale value is not the same for every, asset class. Two people can own a Cadillac, a 2011 Cadillac, and one will depreciate more depending on the mileage and depending on how well the person kept the car up. Okay, so but this is only for business application, so this will work for business application. Okay, if you want to know how much a car depreciated, go look at the Kelly book value on it if you're trying to resell it. Okay, for business purposes, we're going to look at some concepts for depreciation. We're going to have salvage value. Okay, and that's what the asset is worth after it's depreciated down as far as it can go. We're going to look at estimated useful life. That is the number of years an item is expected to be used. So we say, well, okay, it'll last 5 years. Well, that's going to be the useful life. Okay, and the useful life also is normally when you're looking to get rid of it and get another one. Accumulated depreciation is the buildup of depreciation. That's what that word accumulated means. It is the buildup of depreciation. And book value, it is the original cost minus the accumulated depreciation. Okay, so here's the formula on how we calculate depreciation. We take the cost and we subtract the salvage value, and then we divide it by the estimated life. Okay, so let's hold on to that formula. Okay, in fact, I'm going to put that formula in the chat box area. So we're going to say cost minus salvage, and then we're going to divide that by the estimated life. We'll divide that by estimated life, and that equals depreciation. Yeah, so that equals depreciation. Okay, so that's the formula we use to figure out what the depreciation is. Cost minus the salvage divided by the estimated life equals the depreciation. And how we figure out accumulated, we take the depreciation, multiply it by the year, whether it's the first year, second year, third year, and that equals accumulated depreciation. So let's say the depreciation is $3,000. $3,000. And the asset is in year 3. Okay. Year 3. How much is the accumulated depreciation? Okay. Okay, so we simply just use the formula. The depreciation is 3,000. We multiply that by 3 years, and we come up with $9,000. So that's what the accumulated depreciation is, 9,000. Okay, so we got two formulas there. We've got the depreciation formula, and we got the accumulated depreciation formula. Okay, so here we go. We got a Suburban purchased a delivery vehicle that cost $25,000. The delivery vehicle has an estimated useful life of 5 years and a residual of $1,200. Okay, you guys see if you can figure out what the depreciation is. And what the accumulated depreciation will be for 2 years. Okay, so that's your depreciation. Julie, what's your accumulated depreciation going to be for 2 years? Okay, thank you. Okay, how about everyone else? Okay, we got Julie's response. We need the rest of the team to join in. Okay, so we got Jennifer's response. Okay, so we're looking for the first 2 years for the accumulated. Okay, so we almost got a response for everybody. Let's see how it plays out. Annual depreciation, accumulated depreciation, book value. Okay, so these are all the values that we're going to be looking for. Okay, when we finish with our annual depreciation, we use our formula, cost minus salvage divided by estimated useful life. And then that gives us 4,760. So congrats, everybody was right about that one. Okay, the book value is going to be the cost minus accumulated. Okay, for year 2, we use the same annual depreciation. For the accumulated depreciation, we multiply it by 2 because we're in our second year. So congrats, everybody was correct with that, 9,520. Then to find the book value, we take the cost of 25,000 and subtract the accumulated of 9,520. And we come up with 15,480. Okay, so here we have another deal. We have a truck, it's $30,000, salvaged at 1,000, estimated useful life 3. Okay, so if you guys can show me the steps that you would take to find the annual depreciation. I just need to see the steps, the problem, how you would set the problem up. Okay, thank you, Julie. Julie has 30,000 minus 1,000 divided by 3. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. 1,000 subtracted from 3.
Muted.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so this problem was asking for a month. Okay, but um, to figure it out for a year, that would be the correct way of doing it. And if you guys use this formula to figure it out for a year, what else additional would you have to do to figure it out for a month? Okay, Judy said multiply by 12. Okay, so what would you guys have to do? Okay, so Julie said multiply by 12. Okay, Jennifer's saying divide by 12. Okay, so who do you guys think is right, Jennifer or Julie? Do we multiply it by 12 or do we divide it by 12? Okay, John's saying divide. Okay, what about you, Jared? What do you say? Multiply or divide? Okay, divide. And you're correct, divide it is. Okay, so once we come up with that amount from taking 30,000, subtracting 1,000, dividing it by 3, then we'll divide it by another 12. And dividing it by 12 will give us the 806. Okay. Okay, so here's how we figure out our depreciation. Okay, now the 12 times 806, of course, we knew that coming in was already this 9,672 because we figured out the annual price. And then, of course, if we took that 9,672 and divided it by 12, it would bring us back to the 806 for the monthly depreciation. But in order to figure out the book value, we're going to have to look at the annual depreciation. And from there, that'll give us our book value. Let me take that back. That'll give us book value of 20,238. Now, if we wanted to find the depreciation for next year, it would still be the same annual depreciation of 9,672. And then if we wanted to find the book value after 3 years, we would have to take 20,328, and then we would have to subtract the 9,672 times 3, because that's how we find our accumulated depreciation. And then that would give us our new book value. Okay, so that's how we would go about doing it. Okay, so let's look at some taxes. Okay, so with taxes it says, in 2003, how much would a single taxpayer with a taxable income of $30,000 pay? All right, here's our tax table. Okay, $30,000 is right in this number right here. So they're guaranteed to pay this. Plus, they've got 27%, okay, over this amount. Okay, so 28,400 is accounted for by the 3,960. Once they go over that amount, they pay 27% of anything over that amount until they get to 68,800. Okay, so the amount that they went over the 28,400 is 1,600. So at that 1,600, they got to pay 27%. So we got the 3,960, the 27% of 1,600, and then we add those two together, and we come up with 4,392. Property taxes, something a little different. When we own houses, we see property tax. Okay, property tax is broken down to many different things that go in property tax, including landfill, schools, okay, garbage collection, fire department, police, all that stuff goes into property tax. Okay, so here we go. These are some of the things that we'll see: education, fire protection, county tax, miscellaneous. Okay, so they want to know if the tax is increased by 18%, what is the new tax for landfill? So they want to know what happens if this increases by 18%. Okay, so this problem is similar to the problems that we were doing in assignment 1, where they were increasing by 24%. So we're simply going to say 18% of 1461, and then we'll add that to 1461, and that'll give us 1724. Now, another thing we could do, let me go back to that problem. Another thing we could do is we could take the 14, no fair. We could take the, why do they keep doing that? Okay, so we could take the 1461 and multiply it by 1.18. Now the 1 stands for the $14.61. Notice we're not multiplying it by 18 cents anymore. We're multiplying it by $1.18, because 1461 times 1 is 1461. So that just keeps us from adding. That just doesn't allow us to do all multiplication. Because remember, multiplication is a shortcut for division. And we took 1461 and multiplied it by 1.18. We would come up with 17.24. And then another type of tax problem we'll see is sales tax. Okay, so we're going to calculate the sales tax here. We've got Kit Kats at $1.59. We got 2 sandwiches at $2.99. And there's tax at 7%. So we got to figure out all the costs first, and then we got to multiply it by the tax. And there we go, we're adding it up. And then once we finish adding it up, we're going to multiply it by 7%. And then that's going to give us 64 cents. So we added all the costs up, and then we multiplied it by 7%. Notice we have that word in there, of. This stands for multiplication. And then we can take the taxes and add it to the price, and then that'll tell us how much we really owe. And there we go. And monetary conversions. Now, we talked about conversion rates already. Okay, so when we look at this right here, what's our conversion rate going to be? Okay, so looking at this, converting from dollars to British pounds, what would our conversion rate be? Okay, we only got 2 numbers here. And we said it would always be one and it would never be the other. What's our conversion rate? Okay, Jared says 1. Okay, how about everyone else? Okay, you only got 2 numbers to pick from. It can either be 1.83 or 1. Which one is it going to be? Okay, John says 1.83. Okay, how about the ladies? Okay, Julie has 1.83. And Jennifer, what do you think? 18.3 or 1? Jennifer, you still with us? Okay, folks, it can never be 1. Okay, 1 will always be one of the options that will be presented to you, but it can never be 1. It will always be the other number. So our conversion rate in this case is going to be $1.83. Just like we say 3 feet is equal to 1 yard. Okay, 1 will always be presented in the conversion rate equation, but it can never be 1. It will always be the other number. So in this case, our conversion rate is going to be $1.83. Okay, so if we've got 5 British pounds, okay, and then we can go back to the conversion rate here, and we see when we go from British pounds to dollars, it increases. We go from $1 to $1.83. So to go from British pounds to dollars, we multiply because multiplying increases things. So we go 5 times $1.83. And that gives us $9.15. Now to convert from dollars to British pounds, we see the $1.83 decreases to $1 or decreases to 1. So the word decrease means to divide. So to go from $5 to British pounds, we have to divide by $1.83. And then that's going to give us 2.73. Okay, so that's the way these will always work out with your conversion rates. Okay, you'll always either multiply or divide. The original conversion rate formula would give you an ideal of whether you multiply or divide. And the conversion rate will always be the number that is not 1. And so, I mean, you can always Google it. Like you say, you may Google, how many ounces are in a pound. Okay. And then Google will tell you, you know, uh, blank amount of ounces, 2.27 ounces equals 1 pound. 2.73 ounces equals 1 pound. Okay. And so then the conversion rate will be 2.73 at that point. Okay. Let's take a little break. Of course, it's not that time. It's about 4:05. We're going to take about a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish up. Okay, we'll come back with more tax stuff. Oh, we've already did that one. Oh, no, we haven't. That's the married one. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then I give everybody a chance to get, no, cancel that. I give everybody a chance to go use the restroom, get something to drink. I'm going to get something to drink because my voice is a little harsh. Okay, so we'll be back we'll make it 7 minutes. So we'll be back at 4:15. Okay, so everybody can take a break for 7 minutes, and we'll be back at 4:15.
This is Lori Grenier. You've seen me on Shark Tank hearing pitches from small businesses. Now, there is a new way for small businesses to get a loan in minutes. It's called Kabbage. That's Kabbage with a K. Just fill out the application online. You'll get an instant decision and could have access to a line of credit of up to $100,000. No waiting, no hassle. Kabbage is A-plus rated by the Better Business Bureau and is a Forbes Top 100 company. Go to Kabbage.com. That's Kabbage with a K. Kabbage. Or call 888-KABBAGE. Get your Plenty card at Exxon or Mobil and start earning points at lots of places.
So I get points for filling up at Exxon?
You sure do.
What about getting coffee at Mobil?
Points.
Streaming TV shows on Hulu?
Definitely.
Points on my AT&T wireless bill?
Yep.
Buying soap?
At Rite Aid.
Buying you a birthday present?
Points at Macy's.
Visiting your parents?
No, you get marriage points.
Oh.
Exxon and Mobil are the only fuel brands that are part of Plenty, the rewards program that lets you earn points at one place and use them at another. Join Plenty for free through a participating Exxon or Mobil station today. Terms and limitations apply. See plenty.com/partners for details.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get started. That's 4:15. Okay, so we got a problem similar to the one that we seen earlier with the individual income tax. The only difference is now these folks are married. And so here's your schedule. I want you guys to see if you can figure out how much taxes, they would pay if they're married filing jointly. Now, I will give you some help with this problem. It says that income of 30,000. 30,000 is in between 12,000, and 47,450. Okay, so that's going to give you a framework for which you need to work with. Okay, so let's see if we can figure out the taxes. This one's probably going to take a little time. Okay, let's see. Jennifer has 5,700. Okay, Julie has 5,700 as well. Okay, John, not a problem. Okay, so and Jared has 5,880. Okay, I think that's everybody. Okay, yeah, that's everybody. Okay, so let's look at it and see. Okay, we know off the bat that $1,200 is fixed. Now, anything above 12,000 is going to be charged at 15%. Okay, and so in this case, we know that we've got 30,000 subtract 12,000, so that means that $18,000 of this money is above 12%. So we'll charge 15% at 18,000 plus the 1,200. Okay, let's go back, and so it'll be 3,900. Okay, so at 30,000, 18,000 of that is above 12,000. So that 18,000 gets charged at 15%, and the rest gets charged at 1,200. Okay, so the amount of taxes in this case is going to be 3,900. Okay, regardless of whatever bracket you go to, there's a fixed amount of tax, and then there is a variable amount or a fluctuating amount based upon how much they go over. You get charged a rate for that. Okay, so budgets are important. We see those a lot in business. Okay, a budget lists all the planned expenses and income. Income is money that we earn, expenses money we pay out. Savings is what's left over. Debt is money that we owe. Okay, so when we look at loans, the money that we owe, we call that principal. Okay, the rate at which the money cost us is called interest rate. And the term is the amount of time we hold the money for. Monthly installments is how much we pay back each month until we get the loan paid off. Okay, so here's a loan right here at 6%. Okay, interest rate to be repaid in 12 months. If the monthly payment for this loan is $86.07, you can calculate the following after each month. Okay, so we got 6% divided by 12, because that 6% is an annual amount, and so we're trying to figure out what it is monthly. So we have to divide it by 12 because it's 12 months in a year. And then we're going to multiply that by 1,000. Okay, so let's see it. Okay, so here's the schedule right here. So we took 1,000 here, and we multiplied that 1,000 by 6% divided by 12. And so that gave us 1,000. Megan, bring that to me. Times 0.5%. Okay. Okay, so we got like 0.5%. which the decimal gets moved um, 2 places to the left, and so that gives us that number there. Because it's like 0.5%, it's not even 1%. Okay, and then that gets multiplied by 1,000, and that gives us $5. So that's how we come up with this 5 here. Now the payment is obviously fixed at $86.07 every month. So out of that $86.07 here, if you subtract these, that's what the principal is right there. So that's what you're paying in principal. Okay. The payments will stay the same every month. Okay, we can see that. Okay, as you pay the loan off, the interest will go down. Okay, you can see that right there. The interest is going down. Okay, and the principal is going to come up. Okay, so as you're paying, you'll pay more principal over time. Okay, because there's a relationship between the interest and the principal. The two added together, the interest, these two things added together equal the payment. Okay, so those two things added together equal the payment. So if you add the $4.59 and $81.47, that'll equal the 807. All right, it should. Okay. Okay, so here's some credit card vocabulary that we need to know, which is very important. Okay, credit card information. Credit card is money that we borrow. Okay, it's plastic. Okay, there's a risk that's associated with it. Okay, the risk determines what the interest rate is going to be on it. The higher the risk, the higher the rate. Finance charges is the amount of interest on the unpaid portion. Daily periodic rate is the interest rate charged on the outstanding balance to calculate the finance charge for each period. Annual percentage rate is what the rate is for each year. Okay. Big part of all of this type of math is the credit score. Okay, so it's important to know what your credit score is because that's what it's going to determine what your interest rate is and inevitably going to determine how much you're going to end up paying back. Two people can borrow the same amount of money and pay different amounts of money back, okay, because it's all based on your credit score. Okay, credit score ranges from 300 to 850. Anything above 700 is low risk and good financial health. Anything below 600 is high risk and unhealthy. Okay, now notice we're not saying poor, bad, and good because it's not saying that you're bad at paying credit back. I've seen people who pay back all their bills on time and still have a low credit score, and that's because they maxed out their credit cards. And we'll see in a second that there are a lot of factors that go into determining your credit score besides you paying back money. Okay, so parts of your credit score, 35% of it is payment history. Okay, so it's not 50%, it's not 60%, it's not over half, it's actually less than half. It's determined by your payment history. Then 30% is how much you owe. That's called credit utilization. How much credit are you using? Okay, so how much credit you're using is almost as important as how much or how well you're paying it back. Okay, so if you're not paying it back that well, that's one thing. Utilizing it is another thing. So, there are people who don't pay back that well, but they got a higher credit score because they know how to utilize credit. They don't max out their credit cards. Okay. The length of your credit history is important. Okay, so it's not a wise idea to go out there and get a bunch of new credit. Going out there and getting a new car will drag your credit the length of your credit average down. And what they do is they average them together. So, I want to kind of show you how it works. Okay, so let's say you've got a loan for 7 years. You had a credit card for 7 years. And then you've got a car that you've got credit on it for 5 years. Okay. So what they do is they take these two things and they find an average. They add them together, 12, and then because there's two of them, they divide it by 2. And then that tells them that your credit, the length of your credit is 6 years. I'm going to just put Y years like that. Now let's say you decide tomorrow you're going to go get yourself a brand new credit card and add it to this account. Now bear in mind that this is going to affect your credit score by 15%. So that means that like if you have like 15% is like going from a 90 to a 75 on a grade. Okay, and so you go out and get yourself a credit card tomorrow. But that credit card is 0 years. So now you got 12 divided by 3. Because you got three accounts there. So now you just dropped 2 years off your average. Okay. And not only did you get hit with the 15% damage to the credit score, but you also got hit with 10% for new credit. Okay. Now let's say that still doesn't slow you down. You keep going. You go and you get yourself a brand new car. Okay, because your score is looking pretty good and you want a car out of the deal. So now you got a new car and a new credit card all stacked on your credit score. And now you got 12 divided by 4. So now you're talking about 3 years. So in a matter of a month, the length of your credit history went from 6 years to 3 years. Okay, anything below 3.5 to 4 years is bad. Okay, the banks don't know enough about you to be wanting to take risks with you. Okay, a way you can look at the length of your credit history is look at the length that you know someone before you marry them, because that's basically what happens when the bank loans you money. You get into a relationship that's going to last for a while. So let's say if you're going to go buy a house, that mortgage is a 30-year relationship with the bank, or it could be 15 years if you get a 15-year one. But at any length, that's a long relationship, 15 to 30 years, for you to be in that type of relationship with a bank. Well, they want to know more about you than 3 years. 6 years average is good, but 3 years, you just got some stuff that just happened. And then also what that's telling them is that you're out there borrowing a lot, so maybe you're not going to be that responsible. Maybe you'll go out and get yourself over debt, over debted. So that's the way they look at the length of your credit history. And then you're going to get slammed again for the 10% for the new credit. Okay. Now, you'll get some points back because, the credit utilization on that new credit card will be like, you'll have like 0% credit utilization on it. So you'll get some of those points back in at 30%. But that'll be weighted into the other card that, you have. So if that other card is not maxed out, it'll help you out a lot. Okay. But that's the way credit scores work. Okay, not a problem, Jared. Not a problem. Okay, so 35% of your credit score is based on your payment history. 30% is based on how much you owe. 15% is based on the length of your credit history. 10% is based upon new credit, and 10% is based upon other factors. Okay, so we see that, having a good credit score is not bad credit, good credit, excellent credit, or poor credit. Okay, it's about your financial health. Okay, and it's based upon more than just you paying people back on time when you owe them money. Okay, it's about using credit wisely and making sure that you have available credit on your credit cards. It's about, having long-term relationships with banks, with the type of credit you have, and not running out there and getting a bunch of new credit that you might not be able to pay for. Okay, so that's how credit score is determined. Your credit score determines your interest rate. Okay, good credit score, low interest rate. Okay, bad credit score, when I say bad credit score, I mean low credit score, high interest rate. High interest rate means you struggle to make payments on time because you're paying way more than everybody else is. Okay, so here's a credit card, and this credit card is at 18% APR. Okay, now at 18% APR, we can guess what kind of credit this person has. Okay, they have a low credit score. That's why they're paying 8%, 18%. There are credit cards that pay 3%, 2%. Okay, but 18% is pretty steep. Okay, now it's not that much off of $400. Okay, this is how we're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure out what an average daily balance is, and that average daily balance is gonna be a weighted average. Your grade is a weighted average. Okay, you get 15% for, some things. You get 10% for other things. Okay, you get 20% for other things. So it's a weighted average. This is a weighted average as well. 400 at 15 days, $100 at 3 days, $150 at 12 days, and then we divide all that by 30, and that tells us what the average daily balance is, which once again is a weighted average. It's 270. And the reason why it's weighted, because we're taking the 400 and multiplying it by 15 to give it weight. We're not just saying 400 plus 100 plus 150, and then we're turning around and dividing that, by 30 days. We're taking the weight of those, okay? And the weight is based upon how long you held that balance. That first balance was held 15 days, okay? So that the previous balance was on $400. Then on day 15, and we can see it right above. Let me see if I can. We can see right above. Where is it at? We can see right here. They made a payment of $300. Okay, on the 15th. So that means that $400 was held for 15 days. And then when they made that $300 payment, 400 minus the 300 gave them 100. Okay, and so that 100 held for 3 days, because we can see right there 18 minus 15 days gives us 3 days. And then everything is based upon 30 days. So from that 18th day to the 30th day, 30 minus 18 gave us 12 days. And then, of course, the 12 days was based upon the $100 plus the $50 that you went out and bought some new stuff with. So the 100 plus 50 is 150. So that's how we came up with those days that we were going to multiply the balances by. And then we divide it all by 30. And then, of course, that gives us our average. Okay, now once we get that $270 average, we multiply it by that 1.5% finance charge. Okay, that's a monthly charge. And then we're going to close out after this, and I'm going to leave time for questions. 15% here. And so we've got 18% divided by 12, because there's 12 months in a year, will give us our monthly rate of 15%. Okay, so that's credit cards. I did want to touch on credit cards and credit scores because, a lot of people are having problems right now with credit cards, and credit scores are very important to everything we want to do in life because it is impossible to build wealth in America without credit. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up for the day. Okay, we got about 15 minutes left. That'll give us an opportunity to ask me any questions that you want to ask. Okay, Jennifer, you're welcome and have a great day. You're welcome, Julie. Okay, John, it looks like it's just me and you. All right, John, do you have any questions for me? Okay, not a problem. All right, well, you have a great day then.